Now, it gets you wondering why he even did that in the first place. Obviously, he was expecting something to be different if he even did it. So he knew that something's up with the island, and that's different somehow in the form of time. Now, time for a little math. The freighter shot the payload, which traveled for 316. When it landed on the island, Dan's watch stated 2:45. Now, obviously, the time on the island is moving, in this case, 31 minutes slower than the real world time. So breaking this down into seconds so it's easier to see for you guys, the payload or the real world time was 11,783 seconds, whereas the island time was 9,903 seconds. So that means the island time is moving, we figured out, at a rate of about 84% of the real world's time. So that means the longer they stay on the island, the farther back in time they're actually going to travel. So in real world time, they've been on the island for about 108 days, but in island time, it's only been about 94 days. So according to this, they're actually 14 days in the past. Also, another thing to notice, I'm sure this isn't the case, but if you notice on the counters, it doesn't show days, months, or years. So it could be a whole nother age. We don't know. But maybe it's not even a time thing. Maybe it's just a distance thing. That like 1 kilometer on the real world is much longer on the island. And also, if you remember back to season 1, episode 13, it's called Hearts and Minds. You'll remember that Saeed had that one compass, and he was talking to Jack about it, and he's saying that north is not where it should be on the compass. He says that if you look at the compass, it shows it's about 7 to 8, so let's say 7.5 degrees off from where it should be. Now the Earth or any sphere is 360 degrees around. Divide that by 24, like for 24 hours in a day, and you get the Earth spinning at about 15 degrees per hour. And every half an hour, it's spinning at 7.5 degrees. Just like what the compass was. North is not showing correctly on the compass because the island is 31 minutes behind the rest of the world, which would make it about 7.5 degrees behind the Earth's rotation. So why is it so hard to get to the island? Because wherever you go, if you go to the coordinates of the island, it's always 7.5 degrees west of where it should be. So if they go to that spot, it's actually 7.5 degrees of where they are. And if they go knowing in advance that it's 7.5 degrees where it should be, going to that spot where it should be, they'll be shifted into island time, and it'll actually be back where it was. So that's why it's so hard to get to the island. Sorry, I know it's a little confusing, but it's basically meaning that it seems almost impossible to go to the island if that's the case. And obviously, if the island was if that's true about the island, it would have extreme advantages, and that's why everyone wants to find it and why Ben's working so hard to protect it and make sure no one comes there. This could also explain why when Jack's reading the obituary, it says it's the date 2007, and he even says on the island it's been only 100 days, so it should be around 2004 if the times match up correctly. The only problem with all this is that somehow Dan and Regina can communicate almost instantly through satellite phones. And if this whole time difference is true, if there is a bend in time, they shouldn't be able to, it should affect it, they shouldn't be able to communicate instantly. So I'm not sure how the producers are going to explain this one. Later in the episode, when Frank is going to fly with Saeed back to the freighter, Dan mentions, or Jan says to Frank, make sure you follow these exact coordinates. So I'm thinking that if they veer off course, even just a tiny bit, something bad will happen, that they'll be lost in time somehow. Maybe that's what Jacob is, lost in time. But if you remember back in season 2, I think it was the very last episode, Ben says the exact same thing to Michael, that you have to follow these exact coordinates. So if they don't follow it, something bad will happen. Kate, Saeed, and Miles are trying to find Charlotte, so they go to the other's old home, and it's deserted. If you remember in an earlier episode, the rest of the others said they were going to a place called the Temple, which I'm not sure what that is. There's probably a lot more people there, I'd imagine, too. And anyway, they go through the different houses, and they go to, I'll show you this one scene right here. They go to the one spot where, in the third season, first episode, where the book club was held. You can see the same counter and everything. They later all end up getting ambushed. But before they do, Saeed goes into Ben's room, and he pulls over a bookcase in a secret room. He goes inside and he sees a bunch of suits and passports with Ben's picture, but just different names. He sees a whole lot of country money, like different countries' money, and it just shows that to me that Ben's able to get off the island at any time he wants, maybe through the magic box, I'm not sure, but that he lies about not being there. Remember the picture I showed you last episode video? It looked like he was off the island. Well, obviously he was now. So he's able to go to the mainland and back to the island whenever he pleases. And obviously if that happens, a time shift will happen since, as I was talking about earlier, there's a time difference. So what could be happening is that Ben might be able to see the future somehow by traveling to the different places, and that's why he doesn't want anyone else to leave, because if they realize that there is this time difference, they'll tell, and Ben doesn't want anyone to know about it. And that's why the people are trying to find Ben, because he's obviously using this to his advantage.